good food doesn't need to be fancy food, doesn't need to be expensive food, doesn't need to be from the hottest new chef out there. If food tastes good for you, if you are celebrating something and you enjoy being there, or you have a great memory tied to it, go there. The normal everyday experiences of going out to dinner, can be more attainable than just feeling like it's this major luxury, because it doesn't mean that you have to go, break the bank to have a great meal.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So, Kristen, you are a former winner and now host of Top Chef. You're a co-host of a bunch of other TV shows like Iron Chef and Fast Foodies. And you opened your Austin restaurant, which I'm, by the way, dying to try.
Please come.
So before we get into everything, let's talk about our show. We all want to get our money right? And part of that is being fairly compensated. On that note, both Kristen Kish and myself are non-client promoters of SoFi Wealth LLC, and we've both been compensated by SoFi for our time today.
And I'm a registered representative of SoFi Securities LLC and an investment advisor representative of SoFi Wealth LLC. The TLDR here is it's my job to make sure that nothing said is false or misrepresents the truth around investing, or it's just a bad money move.
Now that we've got that out of the way, let's chat a little bit more about you, and I'll kick it over to Brian.
And before we get into the world of fine dining, we want to open it up a little bit more lighthearted with an icebreaker, okay? All right, so the first one. So pretend that you know the world's going to end in 24 hours. What do you eat?
We're a great icebreaker.
I mean, really positive message here. What are you eating for your last few meals?
It's so easy. It's so easy. It's chicken fingers, French fries, ranch dressing, and mayonnaise.
Oh,
wait.
Okay,
you had me until May, and why?
Mayonnaise is one of the greatest foods on this planet.
See, now I can get down with this. Chicken fingers, French fries, perfect. Now, are you cooking this yourself?
No, absolutely not.
Whoa, wait, where are we getting it?
Anywhere like kind of crappy. Like the more frozen, processed version of a chicken tender, that's the chicken tender I want. I don't want a homemade version.
Okay.
I don't want it from a super fancy restaurant. If it doesn't cost like $8 or under, it's not the right chicken finger for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, Brian, this is your language.
I know, this is my jam. This is my jam. Okay, second question. Now, raised in the Midwest, do you have a guilty pleasure outside of chicken fingers and French fries that's a Midwest food?
I mean, I have zero guilt around food.
Okay.
There's nothing that I'm ashamed to say that I like. My favorite thing at the Thanksgiving table growing up, and still to this day, is green bean casserole, preferably all out of the cans.
Yep.
Again, trying to fancify green bean casserole does not work.
Yeah.
It just isn't the same. Now you're just making me green beans and mushrooms. I love broccoli cheddar soup from a can. I think we're sensing a theme. Anything from a can or ultra processed or comes out of a squeeze bag. That's what I love.
You know what? You're giving me confidence that I could cook for you then.
Yes.
Because that's about the skill set that I have personally.
Now on to our Q&A session. So I want to ask a little bit about your win as the top chef. How did you know how to handle that winning money, or you didn't?
I didn't.
Oh.
No, I've never seen that much money. Like, I went on television, I remember saying, I've never won so much money for cooking mushrooms. Like, what the hell? Like, I just earned far more than my, I don't know how many salaries put together. Man, so when that check came, it literally just came as a check. And I've always worked for other people. There was always a W-2.
Yeah.
I never had to worry about that. I just got to get money back during tax season. And so I was like, well, I'm going to do what any responsible person needs to do. And they're going to put a down payment on a condo because I should stop renting. No, I was not ready to put any money down for anything. I should have continued renting my one efficiency room apartment and kept saving. That's what I should have done, but I didn't. And I convinced myself otherwise. And I refused to take advice or hear any answer differently. So I had to learn the hard way. I put all the money into to buying a place. And gosh, I had student loan debt. I had credit card debt. And here I am putting this in this one avenue. And I was like, okay, well, this is what I'm supposed to do, because that's all I knew at that moment. And so then naturally I had to go on a payment plan for the IRS for many years.
For the back taxes.
Correct. Yep. And so I paid my things. I consolidated or whatever the student loans and the payments together. So I was just paying so much money, more than my mortgage now, just to all the shit that I didn't pay up front. So good news, debt-free. So yeah, we're good. that was taken care of. And I smartened up, and I also hired an accountant. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like a lot of those important lessons are honestly learned the hard way.
Yeah.
In my early to mid-20s, I'm like, I learned a lot of things the hard way. I mean, I guess, what are other lessons that you learned from personal finances that...
Oh, God. Honestly, I had to learn the hard way that I should be slightly living below my means. And I don't mean, like, now it's easy because I, like, want to and I understand the value of saving. But, like, when I had no money, why was I taking out so many credit cards to look like I had money? Like, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
But, like, that was driven by my insecurity. That was driven by a lot of things that were internally going on with me, that the only way I could feel fulfilled for just a second was to buy oversized gross Chanel sunglasses that I did not even like, just so I could look like I fit in, and that I could buy something like that. So I had to learn that the hard way, that taking out multiple credit cards at department stores is not good.
Plus one to that.
Yeah, exactly. And I had to learn that also all like the retirement stuff and the CDs and the things, all the terms that I don't know personally a lot about, but that's why I have somebody that knows a lot about it to help me figure out what's going to sustain and take my money for the long game.
So we've talked about your win on Top Chef, but what about now that you're the host? Okay, cool, right? Like full circle moment. You're now on the other side of the table being like, this is good, this is bad. But you're obviously hosting now. You may not necessarily have as much time to be in the kitchen. How are you evaluating opportunities in your career of like, hey, this makes me happy, this doesn't, this is worth the money, this isn't? Like, how are you doing that?
You know, I've said for a very long time in my career that you always want to be the parsley leaf, not the chopped parsley. And so I had to learn that early on.
Can you explain that to us? Because I don't cook like that.
So being the chopped parsley, we've all had like the plates with parsley sprinkled all over them. It's all over the rim of the plate. It just gets in your teeth. It's just like annoying. And all of a sudden, the parsley becomes this nuisance. And you kind of are annoyed by the sight of it. At least I am. And then you look at the parsley leaf that is intentionally placed when it's there in a dish or a salad or a pasta dish, that you'll notice it if it's not there. And that's sometimes how I evaluate things too. I'm like, where am I going to feel most valuable to them and also to myself? And that's how I also kind of pick and choose where I want to end up.
I'm stealing.
So you want to be the parsley leaf. You don't want to be the chopped parsley.
So good.
Yeah. Unless you're tabbouleh, that's a lot of chopped parsley. So disregard tabbouleh.
Do you feel like there was ever just a pivotal moment that you were like, this is, I made it. Like, this is why I have gone from point A to point B?
I feel like there's a large part of me that says no, you know, like, do you ever, like, the progressive nature of one's career and one's life kind of should go at a pace where all of a sudden doesn't smack you across the face. And you're like, here you are.
Yeah.
But if I do look back, and I say this without ego, I truly mean this. When you look back and you're like, I can actually see where I was and now where I am, and I can be proud of the growth.
So how did you go from Midwest, kind of small town, to get interested and start learning and going down this path?
Television. So there's a show, I don't know if you guys have ever watched. It's called Great Chefs of the World. It was on Discovery Channel. You can find it still on YouTube or whatever. And it's just like these chefs that I didn't know their name. I didn't know what they were cooking. It was really low production. And they would just cook a dish. It'd be, you know, one chef would do the starter, another one would do the main, and then another one would do the final course, dessert. And it captured me. And I would sit in the kitchen with like a microwave pizza, waiting for dinner, and like sitting there up on a stool, watching these shows, and I fell in love with the process of cooking. It definitely set into my subconscious somehow, because it's not, I didn't cook meals. I wasn't that chef that can say, oh, when I was a kid, I was in the thing and I was creating all these things and da-da-da-da. I was still messing up a lot after culinary school. So I hadn't found the groove yet of what it meant to be a chef for my career. But it stuck with me. And I think I kept going back to it because I felt confident in that space.
Can can I ask, you said like you were still making all of these mistakes after culinary school. Obviously, kitchens are oftentimes really, really male dominated. Do you have any advice for other women who want to get into the restaurant space? You know, how did you navigate that?
I will say, no matter who you are, you know, however you identify, going from school into the real world is a challenge. It's a jump. You're going to be tested by anybody and everyone around you. That being said, you know, when you do choose a dominant industry or an industry that is dominant heavily in people that aren't you, and that can mean a lot of different things, you have to navigate it a little bit differently. And I always say, like, whenever you go in, there are so many beginner, like, entry-level jobs.
Yeah.
Leave and go find another, like, try another one. You gotta, like, try a bunch of things on for size. And, like, my first cooking job, I stuck with because it was good enough. And I wish I realized that I didn't have to do that. I could have, like, tried somewhere else. And that's okay. You know, giving it a go. And if it's not working for you, you don't have to stay. I know that's a little bit of more of a luxurious stance to take as we get older and you have more responsibilities financially, et cetera. But in those like moments where you are and hopefully are allowed to play around with it, give yourself permission to do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, did you have any mentors that you really looked up to when you were coming up in the industry and you were like, when I grow up, I want to be you?
I admire a lot of people. I don't ever idolize anybody. And for me, that's not by choice. That's just simply, but I cannot wrap my brain around idolizing and just like putting this one person up on a pedestal.
Yeah.
I strive to find qualities in people around me that I want to incorporate into me, that I want to surround myself with. But I don't want to be like anybody else. And I think, so I guess no. Yes, I was like, oh, that looks great. That's a cool thing. But all I'm doing is taking inventory of what I like and what I don't like. So then I can move down my life and my journey, putting my pieces of the puzzle together.
That is such a good answer, because I think oftentimes when we are trying to learn a new skill or a new job or anything, it's like, it's very easy to try to basically become someone else. But I think it's really powerful that you said, no, all of these people have incredible qualities, maybe a couple bad ones. I'm gonna take what I like and leave what I don't. And, you know, built out your own self.
Exactly, yeah.
And do you think like not idolizing someone gave you the confidence that you could experiment, explore, learn, and do it yourself? Because I feel like there's a difference between learning and idolizing someone in that area too.
Yeah, I think it takes a lot of time. I don't know if I can ever say that I'm fully confident in any one area of my life, even now as a 40-year-old grown-ass adult eating chicken fingers.
What is your skincare routine? Sorry, okay, sorry.
We can go over that later.
Yeah.
It's really
chicken
cheap.
tenders.
That's the chicken tenders.
It costs no money. So I don't know. I think it takes time, but I also am not worried about putting pressure on being like, now's the time to become this version of yourself or have the confidence in this area. I think it just, I don't know. I just let it come and go, and it ebbs and flows. And some days are, you know, those days where I feel like I really got my shit together. And then there's some days where I'm like, nope, you don't. But that is where you find the confidence in being able to say, well, today I don't have my shit together. And that's all right.
Now, do you think there's a recipe for commercial success? And, you know, in your opinion, what could others learn and apply if they're kind of going down that path?
God, I hate to say, I'm going to say this word and I'm going to roll my eyes at myself because everyone just says it all the time. It's truly just an authentic vision of yourself. Because at the end of the day, whether it clicks and takes off or does whatever it's going to do and like becomes this massive success is to be known. We don't know. But all I know is that if I do fail, at least I failed knowing that I did exactly what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. So when I look at my restaurant, I'll be the first to admit that my opening recipe was not successful. We were fine. It was going. I was personally not feeling successful. The restaurant I knew could be better. I was cooking a little bit more with like my head as opposed to like, what do I want to bring? And so I realized really early on in that restaurant process, it's like, why am I overcomplicating things? Like, we're in Austin. It's like casual, like we're chill. We just want to feed people. And I was like, well, the only story that hasn't been told is my story. and what is my story that I want to tell right now for this restaurant, it's all the junk food that I love to eat. And so I just spin it and like bring my professional sensibility and maybe it doesn't sound like it now, my great palate and expertise into bringing comfort into my food to then serve to our guests. And before that, I think I was being a little too precious with everything.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think, talking about the restaurant, because there's obviously a financial aspect of it, and, we talk about finances all the time. What do you think that you learned that was extremely helpful from the financial side of things that others can learn starting their own business?
That everything costs money. Everything costs money. I was fortunate to have and to still have a bigger team, as a hotel management property, behind me, which comes with hotel money. And we were able to spread our wings a little bit more and be like, well, do we want those plates from Australia? Sure, we do. But again, there's still a budget no matter how much money or how little money you have. And I just remember sitting in the kitchen or working service and you hear a piece of silverware drop and you're like, fuck, that just chipped off the plating or something. I don't know. And you're like,
I know how much that plate costs.
Exactly. Or when you hear something drop or shatter, it just sends shivers up my spine. And I know it's not coming directly out of my pocket, but it collectively as a group of people earning a living and a wage off of our business, it's coming out of somewhere. And it will eventually, if you keep breaking plates, it's gonna damage the business. So all those little things things accidentally get put in the trash, they're clearing plates or something and a fork drops in. And that over time adds up. The natural disasters of restaurants, it's just everything costs money, everything. And without one thing, you don't have a fully formed restaurant. You don't. I was talking with my now wife who, long story short, she helped open the project. She was a food and beverage director. And she was like, Kristen, we account for this. The amount of times it actually happens daily in hotels and restaurants, it's astronomical.
And, I said I couldn't be a restaurateur, but it sounded like for a really long time, you didn't want to open a restaurant either. What made you change your mind?
I left restaurants for a lot of different reasons. I never wanted my own restaurant. I think largely, one, you are responsible for people. You're responsible for making money. You're responsible for making money for other people. You're responsible for keeping a business going. And for me, at that time in my life, it just felt like too much pressure. I was like, my life's good. I don't need to add some things in there to make me feel like I'm challenging myself more than I wanted to in the moment. And what changed was I took the call. I got a DM that said, hey, we're opening a new project in Austin. We'd like to talk to you about running the main restaurant. And I was like, okay. I was like, knowing in my head, I probably am not gonna take this. I was like, sure, I'll take your free trip to Austin. I'll have a great time. I've never been. So I got off the airplane. It was March. It was during South by Southwest, so the energy was alive. The weather was perfect. And I toured the space, the old space, before the renovations. I was like, I think I like it here. And then, obviously the details of contract and deals and all that stuff have to make sense. And it all did. And I ended up taking it. But looking back on it, I'm fairly certain that I ended up taking the job because that is how I met my future wife.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I love that.
So it's something, I don't know, there's a feeling that I wanted to, and I am so proud of the restaurant, everyone working in there from opening team to now. I have a lot of people that have been with me since day one, or very, very early on. And I feel incredibly proud to have the restaurant in Austin.
Let's take a quick break to talk about one of the ways SoFi can help you reach your ambitions. Psst, come here. Can we ask you a personal question?
Like a really personal one.
Are there big milestones you've been putting off just because you don't have the funds to make them happen? Like updating that patio, going on that dream vacation, planning for a family or something more? Too personal? We don't think so, because SoFi is ready to help you with a personal loan.
Whatever your personal journey is, SoFi is there to help you reach those milestones. SoFi personal loans have low fixed rates to make those big milestones easier to achieve.
Not to mention, SoFi was voted the top personal loan of 2023 by NerdWallet. View your rate today at SoFi.com. Alrighty, Kristen, I want us to pivot a little bit into talking about richness in more than one sense of the word. Specifically, though, in your career, not only have you been able to really ascend in the restaurant industry and in the food and fine dining industry, but you've also been able to nurture a lot of other people who are coming up. How would you say that you find richness in your career today?
Gosh, there's so many answers to that.
Yeah, I know.
I can't ever really put pen to paper in that way and say it's like this list. It's a feeling because majority of my life I've felt completely depleted. And I had zero sense of richness in my life personally, which then impacted everything around me. And so to now feel it and to actually like actively nurture that part, I don't know, that also is a definition of richness too.
Of course. And it's certainly not just a quantifiable measure. It is a lot about that feeling, right? Because you can be rich in time, you can be rich in resources, you can be rich in joy and laughter, and it sounds like you are doing what you are meant to be doing if you feel so rich in your career as it stands, and you can wake up every day and smile.
And right before my career kind of shifted and where I actually started to earn more income, because I'm not going to ignore that part of my life and my career. But before that all happened, I was living in a one-bedroom, it's not even one bedroom. It was a efficiency with no kitchen. There was a shower and a toilet, and then the sink was on the outside. And that's where I filmed my Top Chef audition video.
Oh, wow.
And it was 100 square feet, the size of this rug. I had a futon thing, and I was working down the street and making not a lot of money, but I was able to pay my rent, pay my phone bill, and occasionally go to like Cheesecake Factory, And so I would wake up and I'd be excited to wake up and go to work. And a couple jobs before that, I lost that excitement. Yeah. That was like right before everything started to change. I was pretty damn happy in that moment.
Now on the topic of richness, like nowadays, are there areas that you will versus won't spend money on?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Now, how do you kind of prioritize those two things?
I don't know, and perhaps you guys can help me flush this out because sometimes I don't make sense. My wife will oftentimes say like, wait, what are you doing? I think generally speaking, I will always prioritize my family. I will prioritize experiences with them and time with them without question. I refuse to pay somebody to cut my grass. I just don't get it. Like, I can do it myself. For my 40th birthday, my mom and my dad got me an edger and a weed whacker. And I was so happy. And I was so excited. And I was like, I can't wait for next season when I have to start doing this stuff. But we had a lawn service for a year and a half-ish. And then I was like, what are we doing? And it's not like it's that much money in the big picture of things. Meanwhile, I can validate buying a new watch because I value a nice watch. So it's like, I don't know. I'm not sure.
It's interesting because everyone has to prioritize. And it's like, okay, you can have anything, just not everything. So it's picking out, okay, the watch matters, the grass doesn't. And as long as a lot of people, it's just like, okay, what's the total I can spend? And then going down the list where you spend more on what matters.
Sure.
I pay someone to cut my grass, ironically, and I'm very cheap everywhere else. So it's just kind of like the opposite.
Because you value the time that you probably get not cutting the grass.
I'm allergic to grass too, so I die.
Also, your health prioritizes cutting the grass. That makes sense. So, I don't know. I feel like I penny pinch, but then I have no problem spending quantity of money on things, obviously, that I want.
Can I ask, this is totally random, what is the thing that you've recently bought that you're like, oh, this was so good?
A watch.
Oh, okay, so watch. You are a big watch aficionado.
And I'm gonna, yes and no. I think it started because when I was young and most of my career, I was like, I'm never gonna be able to afford a nice watch that I see people wearing. And I've always, as a child, high school, my first year of college, I was always admiring, like, I'm like, wow, wouldn't it be cool to be able to buy that? Like, what do you do that you can do that? And that must feel really good.
Yeah.
And it became this like goal, not for money, but it was like, I can now do something like this for myself. And so it became this marker of doing good and being able to financially reap that benefit. So I'm done probably buying watches. And I don't have that many comparative to like a lot of watch collectors. I have like 3. Like I'm not, you know, I'm not rolling in like 8,000 watches or anything.
Yeah. And in the grand scheme of all of the luxury products that you could have purchased, watches typically do perform the best in terms of resale value.
I heard that.
Ever did decide to part with any of your 3 to upgrade, to get another one before your wife finds out. We're transparent with our partners here about money.
1,000%.
But you know, they do hold their value.
I mean, it's interesting. It reminded me of, you know, your story related to your bag, where I think in your mind, you have to have some sort of reward in anything in life, especially finances. So it's like, if that becomes like the physical manifestation of you getting to a certain spot, like it may not make sense to anyone else, but that's extremely powerful to keep working towards that. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Like I gave up on ever having savings when I was working in kitchens, when I was, you know, 20 to, gosh, all my 20s. I gave up on the idea that I was ever going to be able to take a vacation, that I was ever going to be able to help out my parents, that I was ever going to be able to buy myself something. And when I let that go, and all of a sudden it kind of changed, everything flipped. But I also think that that's also what's keeping me frugal in many areas of my life too.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times that will happen to people where it kind of gets ingrained in them, where like they go through experiences and then that just continues to drive their habits regardless of their circumstances change, so. You
know, once you reach a certain place financially and what you have, like no other extra stuff is gonna do anything.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna might make you feel good for a second, but it's not actually going to impact your happiness, right? There's a number, right? Is that number accurate?
Yeah.
You know what they say?
Like I have a, you know, it's enough number. And once you get to that number, every additional dollar, there's essentially a diminishing marginal return. It's like, am I really going to be that much happier if I have $50 million versus $10 million versus $5 million? Like, at what point is that turn? And I think it's different for everyone, but there certainly is a point.
There's a point, And I think the only joy that I would, in my brain, I'm like, if you ever won like that lottery with like obscene amount of money, you're like, maybe you could actually do something like really, really big and substantial for society and humanity. And that would bring me joy. So like,
of course.
With that, you know, but in my own like little like bubble controlled life, it's not gonna do much.
Now, you mentioned your wife. Do you and her approach money the same way, or are there gonna be differences in how you just view money and just, you know, act with it? We
are more similar than we are different, which is great. She loves a good bargain. So like in the space, like outdoor furniture. I'm like, B, like there's this thing, it's not like it's that much money. I feel like it's the going rate for like normal outdoor furniture. And she's like, no, I can find it for cheaper. I was like,
I love
do it. And she will research and research and research until she finds the best deal. And I love that about her, because even though we're not breaking the bank by spending what I initially found online, she is saving us just that much more money, which then makes me feel so happy. So she likes a bargain. But I will say I have learned and continue to learn to appreciate quality and pieces that will stay with you for the rest of your life.
While we're on the subject of finding richness in your life, let's learn a little about how SoFi helps their members get their money right. Wait, Brian, do you hear that?
Hear what?
Me, your rich BFF, begging our viewers to stop keeping their money in accounts with 0.01% APY and get a high-yield savings account. Seriously, I'm begging.
Who can say no to a face like that?
Cheer me up and sign up to become a SoFi member at SoFi.com/richerlives. You'll get a highly competitive APY on savings balances with direct deposit. Plus, you'll get complimentary access to financial planners like Brian to help guide you toward getting your money right.
One thing I have been curious about, I mean, we've mentioned like finances, we've been diving into that. One area that a lot of people struggle with is on going out to eat and dining and eating in general. Like, your expert opinion, how can people still have a good experience, but also not blow up their budget?
The beautiful thing about this restaurant industry, and even regardless of where you live, you don't have to live in New York or in LA. You could be in Caledonia, Michigan. And I mean this, is for me, good food doesn't need to be fancy food, doesn't need to be expensive food, doesn't need to be from the hottest new chef out there. You don't have to do that. If food tastes good for you, if you are celebrating something and you enjoy being there, or you have a great memory tied to it, or it's just the thing that's open on Christmas Day and you're so excited because you actually found a place because you don't want to cook, go there. Like, you're wherever you want to go. And I think if you want to go to one of those restaurants that are like on the best of list, then yes, you do have to save, you have to budget, you have to plan for it. But the normal everyday experiences of going out to dinner, in some cases, depending on where you live, can be more attainable than just feeling like it's this major luxury, because it doesn't mean that you have to go, break the bank to have a great meal.
It sounds kind of similar to what you said earlier about like the sunglasses or whatever. Like, it's almost like, do you want to eat or do you want to be seen or known to eat somewhere? And what's really the difference and what matters to you?
It's also where you want to prioritize. If you don't want to prioritize going out to dinner and saving your money for someone else to cook you food, you don't have to. I will say on the other side is like being someone that has a restaurant and seeing so many different people come in our doors. So many times they're like, we've been waiting all year to do this. We had to, fly there, do the things. And it does, when you work in a restaurant, and it's, one of my favorite things to do is you walk through the dining room and you see why people are there. Not whether if they're, not thinking, or do you like what I'm cooked for you or whatever. It's like they're having an experience and it makes you cook differently, knowing that people did save and people planned, and whether financially or not they could afford it at the drop of a dime or not, or drop of a hat or not, they're taking their time to come to the restaurant. Like, that in and of itself is valuable, which then makes us want to cook differently, and it should impact the way we cook and take care of our guests.
That's incredible. It's like the performers. That's like, okay, you spent this money to come to a concert or do whatever it may be, like that responsibility, which is, it's really cool.
And then I still go into the dining room and my chefs know the second I walk back in, they're like, how much free stuff are we giving away now? And I was like, yeah. Because I go out there and then I put faces to ticket numbers, and all of a sudden I want, like, let's just get them dessert. Oh my God, they were so cute. Let's get them another round of drinks, and I start doing that. So it's become this thing. I come back into the kitchen and my chef who runs the day-to-day, Alex, he's like, he knows it's coming. I'm like, comped, and comped. So don't take that business advice.
Happy birthday to table 7.
Yeah, exactly. but take care of the people, that show up for you, and also take care of you too.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure, and honestly, I'm a little hungry after this conversation. Do you want to order some food?
Definitely. Hi, it's me, Brian Walsh, aka Dr. Money, again to talk about some of the legal stuff. Though I am a certified financial planner professional, your finances are unique. That means anything I talked about today shouldn't be considered advice. Think of it more as high-level education or guidance.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Well, damn.
And she's not the one that works at SoFi.
Listen,
you were supposed to say
I
that.
need to step my game up. This
Damn. She is taking after your.
There goes my
going after your
bonus.
job.